Oh, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I'm going to introduce Sam Maybo. I think most of you know who he is. And he's going to tell you the story about how he got these photos as part of his presentation, but they're amazing. And we also had photos from some other places. He'll give credit at where it's due at the end. Okay, welcome, Sam.
Okay, I'm going to say welcome also, but should I be standing here, I really have to ask myself that. There are so many historians in the Upper County, Fred Kruger for sure, and his kids in school. They probably have this documented down to the gnat's eye. And here I'm supposed to talk to you about 24 years in 30 minutes. And Judy Plesha has the clock, and she says she's pulling the plug. Okay, so here we go. Why am I here? I'm going to have to say probably because of my mother, Cecilia Maybo, who went to the guy's estate sale, and the guy I'm talking about is John S. Bresco, organized the very first ski club west of Denver. I mean, organized. A lot of clubs, but they weren't organized. So my mom went to the estate sale and bought boxes of stuff, letters, records, pictures, some ski bibs that the jumpers used, some posters, and they're in her closet. You don't want to open this closet. My sister is here. I think she will verify. Stand back, because when that door opens, you're going to get ring binder and all that stuff. Okay, I'm going to have to jump just ahead a few years. In 2012, Claudette and I went to Sun Valley to visit our daughters, and there happened to be a film going on at the same time. So I'm over there buying. I definitely wanted to see the presentation on Idaho wolves. It was fantastic. But when I was there, Monica, who was volunteering selling tickets, says, "Hey, Dad, come on over. I want you to meet this guy." Well, I didn't know him, tall guy with gray hair. I go over there. He says, "Hey, I'm John Lundeen, a trial attorney from Seattle that has a home also in Sun Valley." And his first comment was, "Hey, I heard you're from Cle Elum." Because the Sun Valley in the summer at the lodge, a lot of the workers come from different countries on exchange programs. So I think John was probably saying to my daughter, "Well, where are you from? You know, Croatia?" She goes, "Cle Elum." Excuse me. So that opened up his eyes, because he said, "Well, you know, I'm writing a book about early skiing on Snoqualmie Pass." And when I was interviewing a person, the person says, "Well, what do you know about Cle Elum?" And actually, he didn't know anything. It's kind of like me. I didn't know anything either about this ski jump. So when I said I was from Cle Elum and he told me that, I looked at him. I says, "John, this is your lucky day, because my mother bought boxes of stuff from the estate of John Bresco." Okay, it's actually John S. Bresco. So if I start saying psych, it's because he was my Boy Scout leader for about 4 or 5 years. Everybody knew him as psych. So if I slip out and say psych, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I think I need to get going. Yeah, I'm going to go back 103 years to 21. So this is what you get to do. Everybody take your shoes off. And I want you to put your shoes, your feet into those shoes of some of these people that you're going to see up here in some of these pictures. We're talking about 1921. So what was it like in 1921? Okay, well, there's the first one. That's the Sunset Highway. That goes over Snoqualmie Pass. Model T Day, as you can see, there's a Model T. That is not open in the wintertime. So if you plan on coming from the west side over to Cle Elum, you're going to be taking a train. And just another idea of this is Sunset Highway. Actually, if I have my history right, I think it was about 1933 or 1934, it actually opened up and it just taken care of in the winter. So you could travel back and forth in a car, which would be more of a Model A. So Syke, starting this club, I know in the back of his head, it's going to be competition, ski jumping. In Norway, it was already a big thing, and it is coming to this country with all the immigrants from Scandinavia, Norway, and et cetera. So how are you going to get from the west side to here? Going to be by train, and now they keep their roads open, the railroads. Oops, I skipped one. So now you are a spectator. You paid the $3.50 to leave the King Street station at 7 o'clock in the morning and arrived in Cle Elum about 10:45. Because why? Because you're going to go watch a ski jumping competition. But, you know, it is weather dependent. You might have the date on the calendar, but do you actually know what it's going to be? So I thought this was kind of neat. You never know, it could be you. So I know you got your new shoes on, so how are they feeling? No, it's going backwards. Yeah. Okay, this is where I'm really going to just start bouncing around, and I can't get into specifics. I don't think you need to know the name of all the skiers and all the distances and all that kind of stuff. So here I go. In 1921, Syke Bresco, with the help of Russell Collins and John Cossard, I think the last name was, they started the club. And it was pretty small, but they still wanted to get something to where it got the kids out of the house. Look at all these kids. Syke Bresco was in the back on the left. And just to have some fun on the end of town, east end of town, if you've ever been down to Green Canyon or the new developments down there, the hills just take right off. So they were able to use some area down there. And they cleaned up the area. They made some runs. Their jumps were actually just taking a shovel, making, you know, piles of snow. And then when you came off the hill, you just did a little jump. And you might have seen some of that on the 8mm that was running during lunch. So that went on for about 2 years, but every weekend, there was about 100 to 400 people down joining that little ski hill called the Kiwanis Ski Run. So in 23, something came up. The club had a chance to lease 40 acres on top of the ridge, north of town, at a very minimal price, and Syke just jumped on it. And they were allowed, it was a Northern Pacific Railroad property. They were allowed to do anything to it that they wanted. Cut the trees down, clear. If they had to change the slope because you know make a better run, they got it done, and they built the first thing they built was a ski hut, a little warming hut. So that is on the 40 acres right up on top of the ridge. Okay, any questions on that? Just kind of neat, actually, that they could actually get together that fast and get it going. So on 24 February 15, Syke and the club put on the first tournament, and he always put the word carnival with it because he loved seeing these kids of different ages, girls, boys, moms, dads, competing. And so it really was a full day event. So in 1924, the very first tournament, 1,500 people attended it. But that's really not all of it. Just a second. You can ask my wife. I don't talk this much. Okay, but this is not all of it. It was a 2-mile trek up to the top of the hill. So if you wanted to participate, put your big shoes on, time up, you're going to be walking right up the hill for 2 miles. And it just happened. So I'll just run some pictures by. You notice that slope right there was just snow piled up in a big bunch, and you just use it as a ski jump. I'll bet you these are really more down low at the Cle Ski Hill. And these are 3 of the ladies modeling their new clothes, their new ski outfit. And if you notice the size of some of these jumping skis, they were just, really, really long. Okay, let me go on from there. Okay, 1926, after the first, but now there still is a tournament every year, but I'm not going to talk about it every month. So now it's 1926. They end up building a 2-story lodge. It's 22 feet wide, 40 feet long. Has an upstairs that has dormitories. On one end, it has a fireplace, but all around the house, it actually has windows, so you can look out and look at the ski hill. This just happens to be maybe out of order, but you notice there is now an actual wooden ski jump in the distance. Okay, back to the warming hut. Okay, now we get to go to the lodge. So all of that timber was actually taken off of that site, that 40-acre site. Because like I said, Northern Pacific said, just do anything you want. And they did. And again, take a look at some of those skis. I wonder who the jumpers are. And then who are the cross-country skiers? You can really tell. Okay, I think this is the one I want. Okay, does anybody recognize this man on the right? That is Ike Bresco. In 1921, when he started the ski club, he was 23 years old. So the guy was quite the visionary. He was born in 1898, died in 1978. That would make him 80 years old. And Tilly, his wife right here, lasted till about, I think it was 1974. So she was around for just a little bit longer. I think I said that wrong. She lasted till 1994. I'm sorry. So 1898 for Psych, and died in 1978, and then Tilly in 1994. Okay, I told you my mom went to the estate sale, so I'm not really sure when that might have happened. If I believe his daughter was named Margie, help me with that. But you never know. It could have been within a year. It could have been within 5 years, 10 years. But anyway, mom has the stuff. But you notice the bullhorn, all of these competitions, that basically where he was. Even after it ended in 1933, he went to the pass and worked with the Seattle Ski Club and actually was the megaphone for a lot of their competition. The guy just really was very active. Okay, now we go up another couple of years. It was 26 when they did the lodge. Now it's 28, and it's another ski tournament. Now we have 4,000 people show up. And it's amazing, even the Northern Pacific had to end up in time starting adding on new cars just to haul these people over to these different sites. But I'm looking back and I'm wondering, we just had the Huskies play in New Orleans. How many fly down on the same day, go to the game and fly back in the same day? It's just like you kind of get over there early, get a hotel, spend the night, get up and do your thing. So look at the Travelers Lodge that we had. We had Reed's Hotel. We had Bircham on Railroad Street. So I think a lot of the lodges and a lot of the restaurants here were probably doing pretty good on these weekends. So now we have a turnaround. The jumping, the winning, excuse me, back up. In 28, the winning jump was 76 feet. So on the south side of the hill, they call it the summit. It's kind of like 70s, 80s. Once in a while, you get a jump that's 90, but it's still attracting, what, 4,000 people? Can you imagine that? Okay, but now, Psych, I really think he was quite the visionary. So in 1929, how many have actually, starting to date myself, but how many remember that you could actually go to the top of the hill and get on the ridge road and drive all the way to Lake Cle Elum and not have anybody in your way? Well, if you've been on the ridge road just north of Cle Elum, once you get there on the other side, it just drops straight off. It's like 45 degrees right down into, I think it's Carlson Canyon. So Sykes' idea next, we're going to make a jump, and we're going to be sending these Class A jumpers a little bit further. This would still be on the summit. I think I'm missing one. I better leave it there. I don't know how to back up. But in 1929, they did build another tower. They had their tournament in 29. 3,000 spectators at this time. Are you ready? 165 feet was the winning jump. And we've been in the 70s and 80s, and all of a sudden, I mean, the word got out, as we would say, the West Siders or the Coasties, their eyes opened up, and we've got ourselves a real place to go skiing and competing. Yeah. Okay, good.
And then the next one I think shows.
Okay, the next one shows the tower. So this particular run here, or picture, I wasn't going to try to remember all this. In 29, the winner was Olaf Locket. Does that sound kind of Norwegian? Something like that. But anyway, so that was 29. This picture right here is actually 1930. So I should stop just for a minute and say 1930 was quite a turning point at this time for Psych. There were ski clubs all over the place. Seattle Ski Club, I'm sorry, started in 1929. And they had permission from the road commissioner on the other side. They had permission to start early, and the road commissioner said, we will keep the road open for you so that you can work right through the winter 29 and 30 and go ahead and start building your ski resort and your jumping. So it's just a lot of competition. So I think Psych at that time, he also heard that in 1939, there was a new organization that started. It was called the Pacific Northwest Ski Association. It was an organization that wanted to sponsor a ski event every year, but they were in charge. Their rules and regulations, but they wanted to make it like the East against the West, kind of like NFL, NBA. Now it's 3 Oregon ski clubs are going to compete against 3 Washington ski clubs. Our ski club, actually the Summit Ski Club, was one, and the other one was the Seattle Ski Club, but I forgot the third one. But you notice now it's actually it's more organized, and you know who you're going to be competing against. So in 31, they had their first one. But here's Psych. He says, I think he was saying we've got to do something a little bit further up the ladder and draw more attention. So in 30, they actually started to build the tower. of this 80-foot jump. But they still had the 1930 tournament. And what they did for the 30 tournament is they actually raised that tower 20 more feet just to get a little more speed and more distance again. So this is the tower here in 1929. And I don't have a picture of it when 20 feet higher, but there you go. But now what you also have to stop and think is you have these skiers going down the side into Tianhui Valley on a test run. Then they have to walk all the way back up that ridge, walk up the tower, do their run. Now they have 2 runs that they are actually judged on. And it's distance, you get a point. And then every time you fall, if one hand hits, it's minus 15 points. If 2 hands hit on your fall, it's minus 30. And if you crash, you don't get to use the points on that one. So you might have a 50-foot jump, but you lose it to somebody with 120 because it's their total points. But 3 times up and down that hill just to compete. Now, if you're a spectator, remember you got your shoes on. If you're a spectator, you're going to sit there. There was 15 competitors. Well, there's 15, but now it's during the actual event. That's 30 more times that you get to watch. So you're going to be standing down there for a while. Something I did find out from watching the black and white, the 8mm. Do you notice when they were coming out of the hole, they were pulling themselves up with the rope? I don't know if you saw that. I just figured in this snow that you get, if it snows a foot or a foot and a half, and the next day you're at a ski tournament, you might have difficulty coming back up that hill. So they had ropes laying on the ground and you pulled yourself out. Okay, but now the 1930 tournament, 5,000 spectators. And this time, somebody came up with the idea of why don't we use the number 7 coal mine and drag some of these spectators on the man cars up the hill about 3/4 of the way. And then they get off the man cars and they walk through the portal. And that is the tunnel that brings in air into the shafts. And then when you get out, you only have about a half an hour hike up now. So that was kind of neat. And it was actually advertised in the Seattle Times. At that time, the round trip ticket was $4.65. The winner of that one was Howard Dalbo, 119 feet. But this is what I was telling you. Ivan Finsberg of Cle Elum, he actually did a 150-foot jump, but still did not win. Okay, let's move on to 1931. So in the summer of 1931, they actually finished. That would be the chute now coming off the tower. That looks down into the Carlson Canyon. And just look at how the spectators, they just kind of pack themselves together, just having a good time freezing. In the book, this actually says this was them walking up to the 1932 tournament, but you know, it could be actually any. You had to walk up to get to that area. And this one, I'll have to jump ahead too. It's a little out, but after trying all these fancy ways of, you know, getting them up there, when it got to the 32 tournament, trucks would actually take you up about halfway, and then you had to walk. And in the 1933 tournament, you got about 3/4 of the way up, and then you had to walk. But it just looks, I just love this picture. It just looks like they're having so much fun. Okay, I have to go back to the 31 tournament. Remember in 30, they got to use the coal mine? Okay, this is 31. Same thing, advertising, come on over, take a ride through the number 7 tunnels. And this time when you get out, guess what? This tractor was loaned to them by the MC Miller Company that had the sawmill. Now you get a ride to the top. I mean, this is big time. But I do have to tell you, one of the ladies on the man car, I don't know what happened, but she got up, almost got decapitated. That was the last time they used the tunnels. The club did pay $100 though for a liability coverage because I think they were just smart enough to know, somebody could get hurt. Oh, this is probably now the reason that you're really here. I told you that the tower in the summer of 30 got started. Now this is the summer of 31, and they get to finish now the bottom part that might have been in the way from the competition in 30. But just let me throw some figures at you, and I'll run through a few pictures. 120,000 feet of lumber, 60,000 feet of rough lumber for the bridge. So why do you think that would have to be rough lumber? To hold the snow. Yes, when you have all that framework, and now you're going to cover it, you don't want the snow to slide off. And so it's 60,000 feet of that. Now the cost of this whole project was $5,000, funded by the NWI, Northwest Improvement Company. There was, I won't bring it up, but there's reading some of the material, some of the letters and stuff like that. These 3 guys wrote a letter stating, and I don't have this right. We would like to work for $4 a day, and we will work from it was like March until September. I forget what it was. But then at the end it says, but if you don't have the money to pay for us, we understand. That just shows you the support that these people have. It was just totally amazing. Okay, one more thing. Now the big thing is the pitch of this jump was 46 degrees, which was 6 degrees more than any other ski jump. And I'm going to say in the world. They always compare it to Norway first. But then it was just steep. They just said it was just almost a killer. And in fact, if you know, is it Warren Miller that does all the ski films? His comment was, my God, these guys must have a lot of courage or a low IQ. Okay, one more thing about the tower. Very top of the tower, where the takeoff is, 117 feet drop. When it was actually tested by Olaf, they were finding out that the speed, and when it got to the bottom, there just wasn't enough time to really push yourself off and get some height. So that ski jump actually had to be extended. The takeoff was extended 16 feet, and then they put a little 15-degree rise at the end. And that kind of catapulted the skiers into the air. Now we're getting the bridge work on. And then one last thing about that whole thing is on the end, if you remember some of the pictures back when I was using the 29 and 30, the whole runway was just kind of narrow. But now we're getting so high in the air and going at such fast speeds, the whole thing at the end was 68 feet wide. They wanted to make sure that if somebody landed and somebody fell, that they weren't just going off into a no place. I still have to back up and say, remember, a ski jumper is going to do this 3 times. And now when he comes back, he has to go up an 80-foot tower 3 times. I'm totally blown away. I can't believe that could actually happen. But one thing I also thought, so you have these jumping skis that are a mile long. What about these golfers that have caddies? Do you think these jumpers might have had some young buck, for $1 or $2, just, I'll carry the skis up, you go on up? Or did they really carry their skis back up that hill 3 times and up, into the tower? I'd like to, could you back to seeing up? I wanted to show you this one. You kind of saw a calendar that was all rusty looking and beat up. That's right.
There it is.
Okay, there's a story behind this. How many know Teddy Foudas? Okay, well, I was talking to Teddy Foudas back when John Lundeen was trying to do his book and they were trying to do the museum. I thought, well, why don't I kind of snoop around Cle Elum, maybe I can help him out. I found out that Teddy Foudas was asked by Margie when they were getting ready to sell the house, how would you like to have all the timbers that are behind up on the hill? 3rd Street is where Syke lived. We had a bunch of property behind. They were kind of left over from the tower. And so Teddy took all those and he built copiers with them. But he kind of made a comment, says, I think I have a calendar from 1930. I thought, really cool. So he emails it to me. So take a look at it. That goes to show you how the businesses really did support the jumping. That tournament was like February 15th. It says in February 20th, they took that picture and they went down and had a calendar made. So I thought that was pretty special. Yeah. Okay, we're almost done. That 1931 tournament, maybe I already did that. No, it had 5,000 spectators. The Northern Pacific had 7 passenger trains. Now they're starting to add more trains instead of adding cars. The winning jump was 128 feet. But here's Syke. Now remember, he's got this brand new ski jump made, and he's really trying to get into this national ski jump competition. So in November of that year, he got some of the members of the Northern Pacific Ski Association and on snowshoes, took them up the hill for 2 miles, down, showed them the jump, and the guys looked at him and said, "You're on. You get to do the 1932 championship ski jump," just because of that tower. And I got a funny feeling Mike Syke might have known that was actually going to happen. If you have a chance to look at the program, this one is 31. So that's the new jump. And this is Syke's thing. Look at how busy he kept all of his spectators. You've got in the morning at 10:30, you got event number 1, Camel's Hump. Then you got event number 2, girls gliding. Number 3, Rocky Run for the men, and Rocky Run boys under 15. It's just always think it's still in his mind, it's still a carnival. He wants these people to really have some fun. But when you get over to the other side at 2 o'clock, now we're into the Class A jumping, and we are going to be down in the Tanoa Valley. So I have to back up one more time. If you look at, I think I have to turn this over. No, it says event number 6, amateur jumping, C class. I need new glasses, I'm sorry. Boys under 16. Guess who won that event? Wayne Bresco's dad. I'm talking to Wayne Bresco, and he says, Sam, he says, I have my dad's skis in the garage up on the rafters, and he won that event. But when I was talking to Teddy Foodaz, I says, hey, did you ever see any of those pieces of wood that you got from the lodge, or maybe the lodge, or maybe the jump? When he was getting these cow feeders made. He says, yeah, I remember 2 names. One was Walt Bresco, and I forget the other one. So maybe Walt, after he won that event, went back up there that summer and figured, they're going to remember me, so he goes and carves his name in something. So I thought that was kind of a neat connection after all those years. Whoops, going backwards. I'm sorry. I'll be out of here in a minute.
There,
No, I want to go forward. I'm going to keep going now.
backwards or forward?
Forwards. This forward is like more of the literature.
Yeah, the next one that will come after this.
Okay.
This just shows.
So you can see right there, that must have been one of the judges checking on form. Okay, I will.
I think it's.
I'm sure some of you know this. This is Dorothea Volt, our 3rd grade teacher. This was a picture taken for publication for the 32 championship tournament. But what a cutie. This is the one that I wanted to show. You saw what Sykes' program looked at, like all the stuff for everybody. Now we're into just the championship put on by, the Pacific Northwest Ski Association. It is nothing but A jumpers, B jumpers, A cross country, B cross country. They're down to business. They're there to have you compete. And the cross country run, but it was a 5-mile course, which 3/4 of it you could actually see from just standing in some place on the course. 3,500 spectators showed up. 202 feet was the longest jump. He did crash at the end, so it wasn't scored, but it is the longest jump at that time in the Northwest history of ski jumping, and there was a lot of it going on. And remember, it's Oregon against Washington, and the winner was Ole Trevdahl of Seattle. If you look on there, you can see some Cle Elum jumpers. We've got, this is the cross country. No, Class B jumping, I'm sorry. It says Laddie Plouse, Fred Zevart, Pete Martha, Chester Lunt. Those are some names that are actually on this trophy up here that, and it says on the top, Summit Ski Club. So remember, it wasn't until we became incorporated in 1931 that we got to change our name to actually the Cle Elum Ski Club. And I think he wanted to do that. So when he went into the tournament, it was really Cle Elum. Okay, we're almost to the end. In 1933, that was our last tournament. There were 2,500 spectators, and it was kind of a bomb. What happened was there were gale force winds snow, you couldn't use the tower. They tried to make a makeshift jump. It probably was the one left over from 1929. And it pretty much put an end to it. But that was the last event that Psych actually hosted. Then in 1944, there was a forest fire on the ridge. Everything burned, the warming hut, the tower, and the lodge. They just all disappeared. So that's it. That's all I got. So thanks for listening. Well, I could ask if you have any questions, but am I supposed to have answers? Go ahead.
I remember Fred saying something about there were talks about the Olympics and that this would be included with the jumping here in Cle Elum at one point in the 30s. And then on top of that, they were going to do bobsledding. So they were looking at making bobsledding run here. But that was their bid for the Olympics, and I couldn't find it.
Okay, good. Well, that's just where I told you I'm not a historian, and Fred Kruger is the guy that really should be here.
And I remember him talking about it at some point.
Okay, good.
It was, and I don't know if there was anything official. It was just they were bidding, and this was part of the package.
Okay, good. Well, I'll let you check that out. The next meeting, you can report back.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anyone else?
So I got a question. Was this before or I know Milwaukee also put this piece up on. Hyatt before they were, was this the main reason that everyone kind of switched to better up summit?
I don't, well, the Northern Pacific went over the Stampede Pass through the tunnels.
Yeah.
Why the Milwaukee? I mean, their tunnels, I think, were built in 1912 and 1914.
Yeah.
Why that wasn't the way to get to Seattle? Maybe at that time there wasn't really a passenger train for the Milwaukee.
Yeah, that made it over. I thought Milwaukee would try to at least try to.
Well, they did. There became the Milwaukee Bowl,
Yeah,
which is right there at Hyatt.
yeah.
But you know, it just got bigger and better all the way along.
Well, I meant, was that by a ski club or just itself?
I don't know. Good question. Yeah, Kent. Not that I know, but I do know, I do have a picture. Was there a town on the pass back at that era named Laconia? Yes, I have a picture of that, 20 feet of snow, and the only thing you see is the gable end of the houses, but there is a trail to the front door. So I would say back then, you never know. But look at today. You know, 2 years ago, we'd have 5 feet of snow out there, and I'm mowing the grass. So any more? Yeah. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. You didn't hear that? It was part of my introduction. It was going to be, yeah, 2015. I told you that all the mom stuff went to John Lundeen. A guy by the name of Kirby Gilbert picked it up. They took it over. Mom said it all has to come back. It all came back organized in 3-ring binders. It was just a sweet deal. If you read this book, Early Skiing on Snoqualmie Pass, you can get them on the computer, Amazon probably. You can buy it at the ski museum at the Pass, Snowboard Museum. You can check it out the Roslyn Cle Elum Library, or you can even with Marty back here, go to Central Washington University and go into the archives. You're going to find a lot of stuff in there. And is that where Fred's stuff is? Yeah, I probably should have read his first. Okay. So anyway, good question, Jerry. Yes, these are, you can buy these. Any more? Well, the last thing that I have is when all this stuff came back, it now belongs to Marty. It is at Central in the archives. Okay, well, thank you.
Oh, here's the last one, Sam. I don't know if you could see this very well, but this is the donations from 1930. I tried to make it better so you can see it, but because it's probably done on a ditto machine. But you can see there's quite a few businesses and people that donated. Pretty cool. There we go. There's our credits.